He was waiting on the memo on the truck road, so I put it in there and printed it out.
Okay, we are going to begin our design review board meeting at 5:11, 6 o'clock, still on my mind. So at this point in time, we start the meeting. First on the agenda, we have the minutes. We've read them. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion to approve, second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 First and second. Yeah, and Lourdes. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, we have any announcements, Tim or Mac? Nope, no special announcements, all right. First item on the list to be heard is Murphy Oil Monument sign.
Good evening, Tim Brown with Planning and Development. As you recall, this originally came in as a canopy sign, and at last month's meeting, the board decided it was more appropriate that they do it as a monument sign, so they've come back and done a monument sign exactly like the one that's currently there. It's just a different color for the diesel, and it's 150 feet away from that existing sign. So it is in compliance with the Chapter 13 scenic corridor requirements, and it's exactly like the current one that's there for the regular unleaded.
And the staff report says a canopy sign, but it is a monument sign, right? That's what the picture showed.
Oh yeah, I've changed everything but the one at the bottom. Everything else is monument sign. Yeah, I missed that. I missed changing that to monument.
Any questions?
And where on the property is the sign going to go?
Well, he provided a graphic. I'm not sure why it's not in your packet, but it's going to be 150 foot east of where the current sign is. Yeah, I mean the current one. Here's the intersection. The one is right there. This one's going to be 150 feet further east.
Okay.
Actually, they were showing it even further away, but I told him, I said, well, it doesn't have to be any distance. As long as you can have two signs, it doesn't matter how far, how close they are. So they moved them closer together. He had it way down the road. I'm like, if that's what you want, fine, but it didn't have to be way down there.
Okay.
So both of them essentially then are in front of the developed part of the...
Yeah, its front's right on 98. It's going to be right on 98. So you'll see the diesel sign first. Well, if you're going west, you'll see it first. And then once you get closer to where you turn into the gas station, then you'll see the unleaded sign.
I know they have a lot of the parcel is not developed, but so the signs will both go just where the developed part is, where the parking and...
No, I think this sign goes beyond that.
Beyond that, okay.
Yeah, that lot. He also had a graphic. Again, I don't know why it's not in here, but there was a graphic showing how long that property is. It's over 3,000 feet.
Yeah.
It's a very.
It's in here. It's in here.
Oh, it's not in my packet.
Oh.
That's a very long parcel. I mean, I think you could have 4 or 5 signs based on the frontage. It's 1 per 400.
Oh, okay.
So every 400 feet, you can have a sign.
Okay.
All right, looks like, any other questions?
No.
Motion?
I move that we approve the monument sign.
Hold on a second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. A motion carries. Thank you. All right, next one on the list, Summer House Bed and Breakfast.
Yes, this is a major development order application requesting the approval to develop a bed and breakfast containing 25 guest rooms with 13,130 square feet, consisting of 13,130 30 square feet on .65 acres with the future land use of infill and a inlet beach neighborhood plan designation of neighborhood commercial. And this project does meet the requirements of Chapter 13 of the U.S. Highway 9331 Scenic Corridor. We went over the Munsell colors. That's probably the hardest thing, and they did provide us with some approved Munsell colors.
Just before we get started, I think we have 2 board members that are going to have to recuse themselves. 2. Yes.
So you're going to need all 4 of the remaining votes.
Yes.
Do we stay?
So, you guys can stay there, you just can't participate in the discussion. And just so the applicant's aware, because we have 2 board members that are recusing themselves, we normally have another board member present, but for approval, we're going to have all 4 remaining members approve the project for it to go forward.
The board requires a minimum of 4 votes.
Okay.
Any
So-
questions?
Any questions? David? I don't have any.
They meet all the parking requirements completely?
Yes. Yes, they meet them.
Do they have any small car parking spaces or?
Terms. Here, just share this with me.
Hey, I'm Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering. Yes, ma'am, we're required to have 27 and a half spaces, and we have 28. We're not having any compact spaces.
Okay.
Oh, thank you very much. I have a question for staff. Has the project already been before the technical review committee? Is this project?
Yes, it can't come to this board until it gets out of the TRC.
Right. Okay.
And it's a major, so the next stop from here will be the Planning Commission.
And clearly, since it's here, the TRC approved the project.
Yes. What we typically do is, the motion is once all the issues have been resolved, because almost always there's some remaining issues once it comes out of TRC, and this was like that, like most of our projects, but they've taken care of all those issues, so it's ready to move forward.
We like that when they do that.
Yes, we all like that.
On the landscaping, I just had a question or two. Now, we're the number of plants is adequate by the looks of it. I just want to make sure we got enough canopy, trees.
Yeah, I don't know if they have any extra or not, but it meets the minimum requirements of the scenic corridor. Sometimes people will put, additional over and above. I'm not sure if they've done that here, but it certainly does meet the minimum requirements. And all of the plans are approved. Well, I guess there's a little bit of issue with palms. I've had a couple projects recently that are using palms, and it's an approved tree, but there's no guidance in the code. Is it a canopy tree or an understory tree? Because they're showing at least one palm. Well, maybe not. I thought it might be in a landscape island, and the code says you have to have a canopy tree in the landscape island. Well, is a palm a canopy tree or not? The code really doesn't address it. It just addresses that it's an approved tree in the scenic corridor. Mm-hmm. But they only have 4. They have four palms, but it appears they're using those as understory trees. No, they're using slash pine. So, do you know what they're?
Slash pine.
Is it
They
just
got a lot
I
of-
think they're just extra.
Yeah.
actually, so.
Trying to put a canary on a date palm, they feature palm in front.
Could you state your name,
Two.
sir?
Steve Piazza Design Architects. What I'd like to put is get 2 big Canary Island date palms to put in the front, basically just feature trees to accent the entry. The rest, if we have some extra out, it would just be mixed in with the pines and stuff as extra, not as part of the required landscaping, but additional.
So,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
What is the reasoning between the the Gavaloon metal next to the barrel tile?
Barrel tile on a low pitch roof, which is those lower pitch sections. I'm not sure where's the. These lower pitch roofs, for 4 and 12, which will always use metal because of the wind load. Also, the same as with a fiberglass shingle, they won't insure them. It has to be that. Same as with a tile. Tile, I wouldn't put a barrel tile roof on anything less than a 6 and 12.
Okay, I just aesthetically, I just sort of like metal with what looks like a barrel tile roof. It just, to me, it's like seems.
It's a mixture. Also trying to get, because part of the deal of this is to have residential in character. So I'm trying to use different materials. That's why it's not just stucco. I'm using some lap siding on it. I'm staggering the building so it gives not just a linear large building,
Right,
so we
right.
can break
I
the
agree
massing.
with all that.
And that was another reason why we were trying to introduce different materials, just to give variety to the
Well, I
building.
just think, I mean, from my point of view, it just seems arbitrary, and to a certain extent, it gives it. I mean, if it was more of the same material, completely all equal. I mean, the scale of the building, the way you've broken it up, is a good scale. You know, it's not overwhelming like
Right.
a big building would be. But I just think
Thank
that
you, that
if
was the
it
purpose.
were to, you know, most houses that have the Spanish style, or you know, that the style that you're depicting would be, you know, would be more appropriate. Would be all the same, you know.
They do that. They put a copper, or we use a flat roof where it brings up a section that goes flat. Some of the Central American, South American homes are that way. Whether they'll use that different style. We can
Right.
go that way with it, or because I really like to keep the barrel tile. I really don't.
I know
wanna
the barrel
lose it.
tile is great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about putting more, but you know, instead of the metal, somehow trying to get the pitches right so that it could be,
Okay.
you know, all of it, and it all be evenly, because it's not like there's something that, you know, that there's an object, or there's a certain rhythm to the thing,
Right.
the Gavaloon, that might create, you know, the reasoning to use that.
Would you
Except
prefer
for that,
copper?
except for the function.
I mean, would you? Copper is a lot more expensive, but that's an option.
No, I just think it's
Then the other option is to pick the pitch up.
try to pitch up
Which
a
is
little bit,
getting
because it's 4 and
this-
12, right? And you have 4 and 12 right now.
the upper roofs, well, the
Yeah.
lower roofs 4 and 12, yeah. So I've got to pick it up from 6 and 12 to 4 and 12. And I said when I get those lower sections, those masses getting to be too dominant with the roof. Yeah, it just.
Well, can't you put barrel in?
I can pick the
5
whole
and
thing
12?
up. But this thing was it did have a lower roof because it was 3 stories at one time. So we reduced that. So now we don't have a problem with the height limitations. I could do that. I could pick up a 6 and 12 on that, and then pick the other roof up to an 8 and 12. If that would be acceptable, we just pick the whole thing up. That way, the material could be the same throughout, without a problem.
Well, I would give it a little bit more volume on the top, on the roof.
I mean, that's a good suggestion. I don't.
I mean, we got the
I
the
see
air
what you-
conditioners are on the roof right now in pockets that they're concealed. So
Would that be a
a
problem?
little, no, basically got a little bit more height to it. Make sure that it's covered, you know, because some of these units are getting taller than what it was intended to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we could do that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. We've got a couple more items on the agenda after this. I'm curious, looks like a fair number of members of the public in the audience. Is it okay if I ask for a show of hands as who is here for this item?
Sure.
Okay.
All was gonna ask if.
Madam Attorney, is it okay if we get comments?
Oh, no.
prior to a motion?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'd be interested in hearing what they have to say.
Anybody want to speak from the audience? Come on up, state your name, please.
Scott Marshall.
Come on up to the podium, Scott.
Based on what I've seen is, in this document, I'm just trying to figure out where the breakfast part of this building is. There's no restaurant or anything shown here. So to me, is it a glorified hotel?
And sir, not to interrupt you, and we do appreciate your comments, but just to be clear, this board is only reviewing the building for its architectural features.
Okay.
The project will go forward to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, where other impacts of the project
Okay.
will be considered at
All
that
right.
time. But we do appreciate your comments.
Okay.
And that does include traffic, because I know we've heard many comments about projects in this location that revolve around the ingress and egress on 98.
Sure.
And that's not something that this body reviews, but
Okay.
I believe it
All right, just a concern.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
Thanks.
thank you for,
I think we can answer
Can I address that question?
sure.
I mean,
Doesn't pertain,
it's
but it's-
fairly easy on this one. It is a bed and breakfast, but talking with Tim and stuff, we don't have to have a full kitchen. It is not a restaurant. It is not a restaurant. What we have in there is we have a breakfast area, we have a living room, we have a library, and we have a extra seating area. In addition to just rooms to make it a bed and breakfast, to distinguish it from a hotel. There's a food prep area. We're not planning on putting commercial hoods in there because of the residential neighborhood around. That was the main reason we decided not to do that. Not to have the fume hood problems plus the fact of the smells leaving.
Okay. All right,
That's on
thank
the
you.
first floor plan, right?
Yeah, it's on, first floor is parking, the first level
Behind the
is.
elevator, yeah, right
Yeah.
there.
And then the second level has the living room and the library up there.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the audience? Public, yes, ma'am. Come on up and state your name.
I'm here for the same reason, because it seems like it's a hotel, not a bed and breakfast. So when can we voice our concerns about that then?
Ma'am, could you state your name for the
Sure,
record?
Melanie Marshall.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Marshall. And as I stated before, the people from the planning department, they can tell you when this will go to the planning commission,
Okay.
maybe. But
Probably gonna go May 5th.
May 5th, okay.
Or, no, it's the next week, 12.
Okay. And you're welcome to express any opinion you
Yeah,
have.
that's what we thought this forum was for.
Right,
That's, I think,
Yes,
why
ma'am.
we're all here.
If you have,
Traffic and the idea that it's a hotel, not a bed and breakfast.
if you have anything to do with the architecture,
I
colors,
know,
landscaping, that's what we deal with here for
No,
the
so
scenic
yeah,
corridor.
we weren't clear on what
Yeah.
this meeting was about then.
And stormwater, no problem. Thank you for your concern. Anybody that want to address the architecture, landscape, or anything like that? Yes, sir.
My name's Adam Boyer. I live in the neighborhood right there. Well, Boyer. First of all, I just want to say thank you for addressing all these issues with this. It's super important to us that all live in that community. I have a lot of things that I'll bring to the next meeting, but for this, as far as architecture goes, my house is right in the backyard of how this is going to be proposed. I mean, literally, I could kick the thing. So my biggest concern, I haven't looked at the planning or just know how it's going to be all set up, but I just really don't want any people staring in my yard, getting out drinking their coffee as I'm walking my dogs out in my backyard or something. Had I known about this 3 years ago when I bought my home, I probably definitely would not have purchased my home at this spot just because of how disgusting my backyard's going to look. So I know that may be for another time, but at least if the architecture is reflected on making my house look decent or just having nobody stare in my yard, that would be really appreciated. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Okay. Board, any other?
My question is, I possibly overlooked it, but is there lighting information, site lighting information?
I haven't gotten any.
We're actually not proposing any exterior lighting except for low level in the front, just like landscape lighting because of the neighborhoods around the area.
All right. Other than your standard porch lighting or?
Yes,
yeah,
yes, just normal.
deck lighting?
But
Okay.
nothing like parking lot lighting.
All right, good. Thank you, Scott. All right. Any other questions?
I do not have other questions.
I don't either. All right. Lourdes?
No?
Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve, based on raising changing the metal roofs to barrel and raising the pitch to maybe 5 and 12. I think that would be enough.
The minimum I could do would probably be 5. Yeah.
I think 5 and 12 would be enough so that you don't go up too high.
Yeah.
And
I'll have to go to the manufacturer and make sure we can do that, but yeah.
yeah, and maybe 7 and 12 instead of 8 and 12
Okay.
for the pitch. I think that would be good.
Okay, all right.
So I'll keep that definition between the two would help.
Right.
Okay, so that's feasible?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So would the roof be all
All one
Barrel roof,
barrel top.
just barrel top.
barrel top roof?
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was the second motion?
7 and 12.
7 on 12.
5 and 12 and 7
Looks
and
very
12.
nice, thank you.
That way it's not too high, it's just not too bad.
5 and 7.
And Carrie, I'd ask that if the minutes could reflect the response on the site lighting, that there is. I second that.
Yeah.
So, sorry, this might be a silly question, but just so I know how to check the order. So is that 5 and 12? Are those feet, inches? How do?
It's pitch.
Slope.
Okay.
Slope,
Okay.
yeah.
And it's 5
Gotcha.
inches per 12 inches.
Okay. All right. Thank
And
you.
the distance of 12 inches goes up 5 inches.
Yeah, and the code, the
Well, Tim
minimum
would have
is
caught
4.
that anyway. But
4 to 12, the maximum is 8 to 12. That's the range
okay.
the code allows for.
Really? It doesn't allow for more?
No, it's on the
I didn't
check.
realize
Look on the checklist.
Yeah.
It says 4 to 12 to 8 to 12. So those are the minimum and maximums. Typically, we get 6. I mean, that's usually what or a flat
Right.
parapet roof.
I just didn't want, the roof to become like a checkerboard.
Yeah, yeah.
Different materials, it's just sort of like.
That was a very good point, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, it's
I
a-
don't need to belabor the point about the lighting, but I just, given the concern of the neighborhood, I want to make sure that the minutes reflect that their answer was there is no site lighting around the back of the property, which is,
Yes,
I think
there
that's the
was
point.
only
That's a
low
good
level
point.
landscaping lighting.
okay.
It's a challenge because, like they said, they're required to make it look residential, like a residential home. But it's a big building.
It's a huge building, but he broke it enough. I mean,
All right, Rosemary Point Monument sign.
Yes, thank you. This is a scenic corridor sign permit application requesting approval of a monument sign measuring 8, whatever that symbol is I have should be feet, 8 feet by 6 feet for a total of 48 square feet. This is located at the corner of Highway 98 and 30A in Inlet Beach. It's located on the 30A side of that intersection. Has the following deficiencies. The site plan indicates the location of the sign is within the County Road 30A right-of-way, and we don't allow any signs to be located within the right-of-way. No building information was provided to determine whether the color of the sign complements the architecture. That's one of the measures we're supposed to determine. No building information was provided to determine whether the sign materials complement the architectural character of the buildings. And there's multiple buildings. It's called, what's it called now?
Rosemary Point.
Yeah, it was in at the Gulf. That's what it was called. No building information was provided to determine whether the shape of the sign reinforces the architectural character of buildings. There was no pictures of the buildings. So, based on the information provided, the proposed monument sign does not meet the minimum technical requirements of the U.S. Highway 98 Scenic Corridor, Chapter 13. But with, if you condition it, it could meet those requirements.
Do we have the applicant here?
Yes.
State your name, please.
Afternoon, my name's Jeff Atkinson.
Jeff Atkinson.
I'm representing Atticus Real Estate, which applied for the sign.
Okay. Mr. Atkinson, sorry, just one question. When
Sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
Based on a prior project, I think I have to recuse
Okay.
myself as a representative of the adjacent property.
Yes, yes.
So just let the record reflect on.
Okay.
And we'll get a form for you.
And the three issues he
I'm
did
sorry,
bring
sir,
up.
just 1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You back in. You back in. Y'all back in.
Any other questions?
All right, are you in or out?
Yeah,
I'm
we're
good.
You're good?
Or else-
Okay, you're out.
I'm out.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 5. Okay, we're good. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Three of the issues that he brought up, the color of the sign, the materials used, and the overall shape of the sign. I've had the letter from the architect that has reviewed the sign and has written a letter saying it does complement the architecture and the character of the buildings. So I do have that. My only issue, I think, so far is the location. And we're going to have an issue with placing it in the right-of-way. I understand that. I've been trying to get a alternative location for the sign from my owner. Haven't been able to do that. So I don't know. We have a really wide right-of-way at that intersection. Normally down 30A, it's about 20 feet of right-of-way. But I think at this section, right on the corner, it's about 80 feet. And this is right at our main entrance to this limited lodging facility. So,
Sorry to interrupt, but just so you're aware, this board would not have the authority to allow you to place anything in the
Right.
right-of-way. The Board of County Commissioners.
so I'm going to ask if we can leave this application open. I know it's not going to get approved tonight.
Right.
But if we can leave it open until we can at least work out an alternative location for the sign.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Probably 2 or 3 things here. One is you probably do need to bring us some color, some sign architecture, because we like probably your architect very well, but he probably, people tell us stuff all the time and they do something different. So we like to see what's going to be there for the record too.
Okay,
We need
you
to
do
have
have a color representation of the sign. It's white and gray. It's a brushed
That's it?
stainless steel lettering and white stucco.
Okay.
There's no other colors.
See the building exterior.
And then we need to see
Need it
the
confirmed.
building.
Oh, of the building?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a white stucco building. We're building the sign would be built out of the same materials and finish.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
just
that
need
would
a
help too.
photograph of a finish, because I see the building being built, but I don't know what it's gonna look like in the end.
Okay,
Yeah, if
so
you-
some elevations, colored elevations.
There you go.
You got it.
There you go.
So once I do get a determination of another location that is on premises, not in the right-of-way, I will also submit some elevations.
So we'll continue this on, I guess we'll make a motion to continue.
I hope-
Is a month sufficient time for you to have?
Yes.
That? Okay.
Is that
I'm
good?
going to say I'll have everything put together in 30 days, and I'll resubmit
Next
or
meeting?
within the next few days to try and make this next meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
May
Sorry,
5th?
Mac, I'm sorry, Mark. Mac has.
You don't have 30 days to allow for resubmittal to make the next meeting.
No, I mean, I'm going to resubmit within a few days.
Okay.
As long as, if I can get it in before we send it off to the newspaper, is that?
We actually shouldn't have to re-advertise if we're continuing.
Okay. So it's basically just a location. I'm going to propose a location, and I'll get you some color representations of the elevations of the building.
The sooner the better, because the staff does have quite a bit on their plate too.
Okay. Okay.
By
Yeah,
Monday.
absolutely. I
Is
can
that
do
good,
that.
Matt?
Yep.
That good?
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
I
I'll make a
will-
motion to continue to the May 5th. Yeah.
We have a motion? Okay.
And you second?
And Tom seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you.
I have to recuse myself.
Oh, goodness. Another one. No.
No, I've got a tablet
Goodness gracious alive. Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I haven't gotten it yet.
Okay, this is a deviation request for color of the building, and building material deviation. The one without, yes, that one inside the pocket there, if you haven't already pulled it out, is the color. So that's the color he wants to do for that section. So they're both for the accents. It's the accent color. He wants blue, and he wants to paint that. So that's going to have the stucco finish. It's pretty much the same material. One will have a finish, the other one will be painted. So he's asking for a deviation for the blue accent color and for that accent building material. But the primary color will be white, and the primary building material will be stucco.
All right.
I basically wrote it up that there's other buildings out there on the scenic corridor that are blue, the O'Donnell building probably being the most
Predominantly noticeable?
the most visible, I guess.
Yeah. So, according to these...
But it is the accent, not the primary.
And the stucco will, okay, is the applicant here? Yeah. Can you come up and state your name? And that's your full name, please?
Thomas B. Waldrop, Jr.
Thank you, sir.
We'll need a fingerprint.
All right.
The project's architect is here also, if we need him, Mr. Joe Sorcy.
Great. The stucco piece goes on the front. Is that the front piece?
Anything you see white is stucco.
Okay.
Anything you see blue is that panel to give the shadow line that color in a vertical presentation.
Okay. Gotcha. That's that. And you're using this whole panel system all around the building?
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is actually in both finishes, the material that we have submitted for to be added
As approved.
to the code.
Yes. But they're not yet.
So technically, all of it's a material deviation, not just the accent.
No, if it's stucco, that doesn't require deviation.
Right.
And there's two
So
buildings.
that material with the stucco finish is what I'm understanding.
That's
It's that same modular, I think.
Yes, but it doesn't matter what's underneath though, as long as it has a facade, and in this case it's stucco. And there's two buildings. You probably won't be able to see the second building because it's behind, but just so you know, there's two buildings that make up this project.
What Munsell color is the closest to this blue that is approved? I'd like to see that.
I don't know because the blue is very limited in the current Munsell's approved colors. It's very...
Well, I know.
Very-
I think
No, I don't think with the current book, but they're very narrow. There's more green and other colors than there are blue. I mean, we did look at it. Did we come up with something?
Yeah, I've got it's on the deal.
I-
If you look at the...
well, you call it a Munsell color on the drawing. It's
Yeah, that's the closest one we could find, whatever the Munsell color. That's not that particular color, but that's the closest one we could find to it.
Pretty dead on. It's Munsell color blue. The blue is 5.0 PD3 4.
Yeah, that's the
But
new. That's the new book that hasn't been approved yet.
oh, but was that one of the approved colors or not?
No, that's
Okay.
why we're asking for a deviation.
Right. Yeah.
Well, personally, I don't know if it was one of the approved colors. And I was.
Oh,
it's-
you mean
it
for the
hasn't-
changes?
It hasn't been approved yet, so that's why I.
Right.
Oh, the new changes haven't been approved yet?
Oh, you mean-
The ones that we put, we
Correct.
did?
No, what
Okay.
is that? That'll be the planning commission next week, and then BCC at the end of April
so
or
those
beginning of
haven't been
May.
approved.
So it won't be
That's why
until
we're
May.
asking for the deviation.
I think it is one of the new approved. I didn't look at that up. I was just looking at the current book, but I think it is one of the new book colors that will be, hopefully, we'll see what the county commission does, but hopefully approved.
And is there a definition for accent as to how much of the color can be, is the blue the accent color, or is
The
is
percentage of
white
them,
the
yeah.
accent color?
Well, I think we did put in those new regulations, there is a
We-
definition, but in this case, I mean, I think it's fairly clear, the white is much more than the blue, so the white's going to be your primary color and the blue's going to be your accent, just by the percentage of the building.
And unfortunately, the percentage of what it's looking at, it's like 50% blue and 50% white in the frontage, at least. I mean, if you see the facade, the front facade only.
That may be
And a lot of blue.
That may be true, but it's not just the front facade, and it's not just the front of the building.
So could we take a corner of that blue off and leave the front entrance corner kind of the big blue?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Lourdes.
we're
It does look pretty close to being 50-50.
I think that's what the ladies are kind
I
of
mean,
talking
I
about.
understand how, you know, your corners are blue accents and the rest of the building is white, right? Because you have the corners further back also are blue.
Yes, I see your point.
On the front, I think what we tried to achieve was we're required to have 3 elevation changes on the front elevation.
Right.
Was to pick up that accent. The primary corner is the southeast corner of the building, which has the large doors and the canopies on it. That's the kind of the focal point of everything. And we just tried to give a small representation of that on the other corner, you know, for some balance. But I'm speaking out of my league. I'm not the architect. I just have an opinion.
Steve?
Yeah, Joe Sorcy, Ford Architects, president.
Okay, Joe, y'all.
Could you spell your last name, please?
S as in Sam, O-R-C-I.
And on I'm sorry, on the white parts, the stucco, it's going to be in narrow strips?
No, well, actually, the panel system, you know, it has joints on it. They're going to be very vague because they get sealed, and you know, with the text coat, with the stucco text coating over it, they're going to be very, very vague. It's going to be hard to even distinguish those lines.
So they won't show up as defined as they are on the drawing?
No, ma'am.
Look like the
We
front.
didn't want to mislead anybody, so we wanted to show something. Because that's the last thing we want to do is mislead anybody. But the fact is after that coating gets applied, you would really strain to see those on the white. I think it's a very good question about the percentage, and I appreciate that comment. If we were driving along 98, obviously there's only one, at that speed on the road, there's only one chance of seeing it in pure elevation. Otherwise, you would see it from the main entry corner in 3 dimensions, and you would see much more white of the building. And on the other corner, the existing building on the lot next door blocks the view of that entire side.
Right.
So I think from a percentage, standpoint, although a very good comment, I think in 3 dimensions in real life, we're going to see so much more white on that corner down the side.
I'm just going to show Ms. Sachs that when the panels are together, the panels are 42 inches wide. That's your caulk gap, and then on top of this, it's spray. So becomes a continuous field-applied coating.
So it's a nice, smooth looking.
Just like that sample you're looking at.
You
Yes,
wouldn't
ma'am.
look at vertical lines at all. Okay.
It'd be like your typical home where you just
And
spread
unfortunately,
it.
they're shown here.
Yeah, I hate to be difficult about it, but I would have to see a photograph of that, really. I mean, so this is a different, this is not an approved building material right now.
No.
And what we have proposed to change the code to allow it is on a case-by-case condition approval basis.
Yes, that's what I
And we
remember.
specifically talked about these joints and the design impact that has, and that it would be, we'd have to really scrutinize that. So I don't know that they're going to, I can't envision how invisible they're going to be, these joints. And it, you know, one of the things that is not allowed in the code is metal buildings. And this looks a lot like a metal building to me. Now, if those lines completely go away on the white, it would look less, or those parts of the building wouldn't look like a metal building. But I don't want to say I don't believe you, but I would have to see it. I've never seen that application with my own eyes. And they are pretty, you know, they do show in the renderings for sure. So I think that takes a lot of scrutiny.
Would the stucco be this thick as you're shown here when they apply it?
That's an actual sample of the coating.
But it would be like this thickness, because if it would be this thickness, it would cover all the vertical.
It will be at least that thickness.
Right.
Yeah, it's typical of a stucco anyway. You put that on, just like a home. You put enough lath and mortar over that to be able to
They take
cover all the
concrete,
cracks.
Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, they take concrete block buildings with this instead of, you know, troweling mud on.
Right.
This is the new system that they're using instead of the more traditional system.
Right, but when you do CMU, concrete block, the material is concrete block and stucco are the same type of material, cementitious. And they're going to move together, and they're not going to try to crack as much.
This is an elastomeric stucco product that does allow movement.
Yeah, actually,
Okay, because this is going to move differently than that stucco.
So
So it creates cracks. Sorry.
actually, if I may, when you float any cementitious material over a cement block, the hairline cracks and the cracks actually telegraph through because it's there's no movement in a cement on a normal stucco. This is more of a high performance type stucco coating that has additives to the cement material to actually allow it to move a little bit, and we won't see hairline cracks and deviations from from the surface like we would on floated directly over a concrete block, which is why it was chosen. It's a much more high performance type coating, more expensive as well, but
Just to be clear, I mean, I'm perceiving this sample is a relatively thin coating on a piece of exterior sheeting, because it's not a solid material. So I think to the point Lee raised, maybe if we knew more about the thickness of the coating itself, and have some assurance about the finished appearance of the building.
Yeah, I'm concerned about it.
Yeah, because I agree, when we discussed the use of SIP panels, we talked about the joint pattern needing to be designed and to be part of the architecture and to relate to the windows, spacing and mullions and all that type of stuff. So, I don't know that inherently the vertical pattern is a problem. I mean, if you look at the windows in this building, they also have a similar pattern. And let's say this building was a concrete block building that had the designer chose to put expansion joints, control joints in the stucco. He might very well come up with that pattern. But I do agree that if we're doing a deviation for a conditional type approval, that we should have some assurance of what it is we're approving.
That it would have a smooth surface. I mean.
Well, that's what I'm saying, it's being represented that it will be a smooth surface, then that's what it needs to be. If
And make that
there
as
will
the-
be some joints, then as long as we understand what we're approving, then I'm okay with that. Because I don't have a fundamental problem with the concept of vertical joints on the face of the building.
Well, what concerns me about vertical joints on the face of the building is that we're already asked to consider a metal accent, which is really much more than an accent in my opinion. And so a lot of our metal buildings have that vertical thin panel look. So that to me even goes more to that. I mean, this is I guess it's
I mean, just as an example, siding has, you can put siding horizontally, you can put siding vertically, and there are joints every 4 to 6 inches.
Board and batten.
Yeah.
I know,
board and batten,
but what
yeah,
I'm
so-
saying is board and batten looks very different from a metal building with vertical, seams, so,
Yeah.
or joints, so
I
this
think-
is all really getting toward that look, is what I'm saying, in my opinion.
Well, what you wanted is you want it to be designed. Not just, hey, we have these panels, we're gonna put them together, and then wherever the vertical joints are, they're just gonna fall. That's what David was saying in terms of if the vertical joints were to meet, vertical joints of the glass or the windows, then maybe that gives you, some kind of a rhythm or something to tie it into.
Let me ask a question. So this white surface is really just going to be one smooth surface from blue wall to blue wall, correct? Is that what I understand?
That's what we're asking.
The material that it'll be applied to
Like that.
is embossed.
So it'll cover those.
So it'll have some texture to it.
It'll cover the seams. It will look just like one solid wall from blue end to the blue end. So in the center, it'll be one smooth stucco surface.
Yes, sir. In fact, going to the embossed panel with that type of coating gives it a true, thicker, real stucco look. And I appreciate the comments about the joints and the patterns. We did try to line it up and coordinate those with the required 3 elevation changes of the parapet. And I truly believe that when you put those panels together and you see it with that embossing, you can't distinguish between a joint in a panel and or anything else. So it should be, it will be very monolithic in appearance.
Yes, I mean,
There's going to be.
so if this joint has sealant, if that joint has sealant, that's going to be a pretty, over a span of, how wide are the panels? 4 feet?
They're 42 inches.
Okay, so 3 through 6.
Even if they
It's
made
a
'em-
relatively small joint for a panel that wide.
Right.
This is fit together.
Yep.
When they're together, now this is, it would both be like, you've got both
Yeah.
pieces.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's the
okay,
same-
good,
same
good.
deal.
Okay,
We
okay.
got on.
Good.
Same thing.
And that side would have that, is this a finished side with
That's the
stucco?
outside.
That's going to be the outside.
So that would have a sealant,
Seal,
and
then the stucco finish over it.
yes.
Okay, well, so then it would be one
If it
smooth
gets that smooth.
panel across from blue corner to blue corner.
Yes.
If the board feels like there's too much accent, then, we can certainly tone that down. We thought, that kind of picked up the flavor of what we were trying to do with that heavy southeast corner.
Yeah, the other question I had, did we not approve some additional materials?
You guys have those, that hasn't gone to the BCC yet for approval by the BCC.
This was a long time ago that we approved it.
I know, it's
been a really long
We
time.
recommend to the BCC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so that is-
recommend, yeah.
Whoa, that
And it
should
still
have
hasn't been
been.
approved?
No, it's.
Well,
because
we
it all
we
got
only had
done
our
as one.
Yeah, we only had our
The
final.
They got stuck in one big old
Yes.
bucket?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So you guys had it for a really long time.
Because you don't want to go repeatedly to the BCC with changes. You'd rather. get
Sorry.
on as much as you
Well,
can.
in this case, we probably shouldn't have, but anyway.
If that's a smooth surface, then I'm okay with it. If it's not a smooth surface, it doesn't feel like an approved building material to me. That's the distinction I'm trying to draw, is to make sure that we're not approving something as a regular approval that's really a deviation needed.
So you
follow
want
me?
you want him to raise his right hand and swear?
No.
Well, I'll ask
Don't
the
make-
question that I've asked from time to time, which is, Tom, the rate the project is moving along, if we were to request that two of these be attached to each other and the seam put on and the finish put over it, so that we actually are approving in something that we know what it is, which will take you to the next meeting, is that a train wreck?
Cost me about 25,000 in rent and
Well, and then knowing that you're on this board and you could serve, you could catch all kind of Haiti if you didn't do it right, then I think that would be.
I think one thing that I'm hoping to demonstrate through this project is this thing called sustainability, and starting with an envelope the correct way and giving an envelope a function, be it thermal or as a moisture barrier or whatever, to deal with all the issues we have in this environment here. I was a general contractor here for 25 years. I've seen all the problems. And I know that solves a majority of the problems for some of our projects out there. Not all of them, but for some of them. And, Lise mentioned it's a metal building. It is a metal panel. That's why we're asking for a deviation there. But it's a structural building system whose time now has come. And really since, in fact, Joe and I were talking, since 2012 with some code changes, it's just now coming on strong in the state of Florida. It's not inexpensive. It's because it's not a metal building. Those walls are 3 inches thick. The roof is 4 inches thick. It feels like you've gone in your refrigerator, thermally when you go in, as far as energy savings and everything else. It's got a lot of integrity to it.
And let me clarify, I didn't say, I don't have an issue with it being a metal building. I have a problem with it looking like a traditional metal building. That's why they're not allowed on the corridor, and the ones that are grandfathered in my mind, stick out like sore thumbs. So my concern is not that it's necessarily got metal in the building material. It's more of the end result of what it looks like. And that is a small seam there. I just remember when we looked at examples and photographs of buildings with this type of material, the seams were very much visual. I mean, you remember, and that's why we said it would have to be conditional.
Yeah, well, some of them were actually.
They're made to be that way.
They were metal panels.
Yes, so
not
that's
structural
why.
Panels, and many of those buildings are fairly large and they have a significant horizontal dimension, and most of the time architects choose to either go with a square panel or a horizontal panel, and I think that was one of the things that we were all worried about.
This is a totally different material. It has metal, but it's a totally different
All we were trying to do with the blue, our colors are blue, always have been. We're trying to pick that up as part of our, what will tie in with our signage and stuff and what we've done. And the reason we chose that shape was just to kind of give it a shadow line so that you see a little movement on the wall and not just something flat and stagnant. And that's,
You got a couple other questions that are related to this. Am I right in interpreting the blue area is offset front?
In that southeastern corner.
Yeah.
Three-dimensional kind of.
Okay. And another question I have about something, a different aspect of the project, this is going to be a question for Tim and Mac. Remind me, what is the maximum, is there a maximum foot candles allowed for site lighting?
Yes, but it's quite high. I mean, it's like the inside of lit football or baseball or basketball stadium. It's 15 foot candles at the property line for commercial.
Okay, so within the property, there is not a,
No, it's measured at the property line.
at the property line, okay.
And 15 foot candles is very bright.
That's the-
I agree. That probably needs to be the next workshop.
Very much so, yes.
But that's in chapter 5. It's not in chapter 13, unless you want to make a specific requirement in chapter 13.
And on this, is this going to be the exterior, or is this going to be the exterior?
The textured or the smooth?
The smooth.
The smooth will be the exterior.
Yeah, and
For
it's
the-
labeled that way on the other samples.
Yes, ma'am, for the,
But
for
that's
the
gonna be-
accent, it's
that's the
smooth.
blue. Yes.
Oh, blue. Oh,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's the blue. This is the blue.
This is the blue.
The smooth panel.
It's the
okay,
blue.
Is the blue.
Just so long, I think the idea is not to have, as what Lee is alluding to, is just kind of, this trying to, it's contemporary, not industrial though, you know what I mean? That's, we're trying to stay away from this, so we don't look like an industrial quarters coming along.
Right.
And we want something with some detail.
If I may, we had this conversation in the studio, a discussion between the 3D architect and myself, and he didn't have the vertical lines on the stucco, the white. And I said, "Man, we need to show a light line there because I don't want that to be a question and then say, how come you didn't show where the panels are?" So, I mean, we went back and forth on it, and I said, just show a light line because I want to be able to show where the panels line up with all the other elements on the facade. So, could they have been lighter or dashed? Maybe they should have been dashed. Because it really will, and I've used metal panels, insulated metal panels on a number of structures. They weren't coated with this, they were just painted, but even on those, you don't, with a wider gap panel, you really don't, it's more of a rhythm anyway, so I really think that the white will be monolithic.
Can I just ask a crazy question?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you use these metal panels horizontally?
You
So that
can if they're
instead of
turned,
vertical?
if they're turned the correct way so that the water doesn't, you know, if the sealant breaks down.
Like that.
Right, like that. There's a natural dam built into the joint.
Because it makes, it's a funny thing, but it, you know, because you're so familiar with all the metal buildings being vertical lines, you change it to horizontal and it just looks like an accent.
Looks more contemporary.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other question that I have, going back to the colors. One of the things we talked about recently, for example, with the parties, we were looking at the brick, and they had brick that was very busy, and they had brick that was more neutral, and we asked them to use the brick that was more neutral because the code says that the buildings are supposed to be less obtrusive and not just kind of jump out at you. And this does jump out at you. It's very bold. So my concern is whether that actually fits within what we're trying to do on the scenic corridor, if there's something else that can be done as far as the color goes. Understanding that you have your blue is your branding.
And I appreciate that, just like in greens, blues or reds, to find exactly the right hue, I mean, it takes some experience. I think that particular color is the closest to what hopefully will be approved on the new Munsell colors. But it also, if you look at it, it's not like a Smurf blue or a neon blue. It's more like a harbor blue. You know, it's got that gray tone to it. And I think it, and as you know, whenever you print material off of a digital image, it's hard to get it exactly, which is why that sample.
That's a very different looking color than what's on the renderings.
Yes, ma'am.
But that's not my concern
Oh.
as far as the color itself, but as far as the application, that it's almost a 50-50 with the white and the blue, and it really does make it pop.
Right.
And I know that as the business owner, that's what you're looking for, because you want to draw attention to that. But that's what our code tells us we're not looking for. So is there a way to make it so that you can still have the blue, but have it be less bold?
I think the fact that the contrast is so big
Yeah.
between the blue and the white. It's so sharp.
It
It's
is.
like black and
there's
white.
a lot of the
So
blue.
and
Those two
there's a
things.
lot of the
If we
blue.
would do away with all of the blue, with the exception of the southeast corner on both buildings. Shoot me, Joe.
It's still, I mean, they're, to me, as an architect, the way you've manipulated the corners
see what he's
and
trying
sort
to
of
do is
like
bring them
put the
together.
blue in there.
Kind of like one.
I've been looking at it and I'm saying, well, where would I take it out?
That's actually.
And I was thinking, well, what if we just do
That
the
looks
one,
right
like
there.
exactly what
What do
you
you
just said, and it's like, it's still
Take
bold.
out the two in the middle and put
Because
one
that
on each
entrance
end.
is big and it's blue and it's white. I think, have you thought about, and I'm just gonna throw.
Sure.
Have you thought about maybe if the blue would be tamed a little bit with more of some kind of a light gray, so that it's not that sharp a contrast?
I think
The white would change to a light gray, and then that way it would tone out the sharpness.
But to
That's a-
to still not have anything but the corner as blue and have everything else
Yeah.
be one color?
That's a very good suggestion. I think that we can tone down the stark white to something that maybe picks up on the gray and that blue,
Right.
and then there's less of a contrast. I think
And
that's
then
an
that way it
excellent
would blend, and
suggestion.
if you leave your entrance the way you have it, because that's your main pop, and then everything else is subdued to that, I think it will look really nice.
I like that.
So you're saying take out all the other blue except
All
for
the other blue
the
except for
focal
the
point of the
entrance,
entrance
yeah.
right there.
What about the rear building?
The same. The rear building would probably just be all gray then,
Okay.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Because you don't want it competing with the front. The front is your main building.
So what about the elevations changes?
Yep, the vertical dimension change.
what do you mean?
Well,
What are
it's
you
still-
asking about?
This-
corners.
The code requires, if you have a parapet roof, you have to have a minimum of 3 vertical changes. It's all
Yeah.
Right.
due to the
That's
parapet
good.
roof.
So what are you asking about,
I
Tom?
think it'd be nice.
What are you asking about?
Well, if we do away with the blue, except on the southeast corner, we've got some vertical changes occurring on the rest of each building. Can we leave those in? Is that okay?
Well, you have to.
I say leave them in,
I-
yeah.
and I don't
Yeah.
think you have to
No,
add
we have
something
to
with
do
a
that.
color to make it look right, yeah.
I think you
I
can
think
come
it's
up with
better.
I think you could, I think it'd be, I think, for me, I'm sorry,
No, I'm good.
no,
I'm listening.
I'm sorry, I mean, if you didn't have the change of there, but you can make the changes right with the block, the entry block,
Mhm.
so that you can do your 2 changes, it only has to be tiny. And then, I don't know how, you might go like a U shape or make it like a gutter line.
Well, would it be a problem to leave the massing the way we have it stepping, but just take off the blue on the other corner?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I mean, I'm just thinking.
Are
go
the
ahead.
windows in the
Corner.
other corner facing the smaller corner, the southwest corner, are those functional? In other words, do they translate to the interior?
Well, it's a showroom, so they're
Yeah.
allowing light.
Multi-height space, okay.
Yes, sir.
I think if the windows remain, that corner should retain its.
Okay, I see that,
massing.
I see
The
that,
height.
okay, yeah.
Even if
Because
the
it won't
colors-
be this straight.
I think just change,
Yeah, I agree.
so
I agree.
really, we're
So-
looking at maybe changing that color, and leaving that focal point, that gray suggestion that Lourdes mentioned, and then just leave everything else there, because you got the 3-dimensional and you still have your 3 components.
Right.
Are we on track there?
I think that would look very rich
I mean,
I mean,
instead
I'm
of
sure you could pick a
contrasting.
really nice light gray
Yes, ma'am.
that would pick up on this blue one, it would tone it down. And there would be, you wouldn't have the harsh contrast with the white.
I think that would look very nice.
As a procedural question, how do we move the project? I think
Well, this is scheduled to go to the PC next month, so if you all continue it, we'll just do both meetings a week apart. This will go
So
to
that
the.
shouldn't slow him down.
This will go to the DRB the first week, and and it's already going to the Planning Commission the second week, so it wouldn't slow the progress of the project down.
So we just continue and he can finish up the rendering with those changes?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to the PC anyway, so we do them a week apart. You go to the DRB the first week, and you go to the PC the
So,
second week.
Mr. Waldrop, it wouldn't slow down
Your overall.
the project.
Okay. I was thinking I advertised in my mail out.
But
That's-
if they continue it to
Oh,
a date
okay.
certain,
You don't have to re-advertise.
You don't have to change your sign, you don't have to do new letters. Did you do your planning commission date, your letters?
Yes, ma'am.
So no.
so that,
Okay.
that won't change. This will change, but that won't change.
Okay.
So procedurally, that'll work.
Okay.
So what are we, so let's summarize.
I think the motion is simply going to be to continue the project.
I mean, the guidance to them,
Right.
to bring back.
Yeah, understood.
That's 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, one would be the metal panels. You want to bring two of those metal panels together and put the finish, a sample, the stucco finish on it, so we can see the product. Two is to change the elevations, take the blue out except for the entrance, and all the rest of the blue is the southeast entrance, and then come up with a light gray that would complement the blue.
And replace it with the white.
Right, replace the white.
Replace the white.
Yeah. And what was the third one? Is that it?
Well, you had talked about toning down the blue, or you still,
I think the toning down the blue is accomplished with the gray.
With the gray.
the gray?
Yes,
only having the
because
blue on one
it
corner.
reduces the shocking value.
So that's it. So
That's it. What about lighting in this?
The reason I asked the question I did is that the lighting levels adjacent to the building are pretty sporty. And I think for the most, there's the potential it will be visible from a residential area.
Commercial building is next door to it.
Well, next door, but I think north of it.
I don't have any of those lights in the back or on the sides, just on the parking lot side, and they are directed pretty straight down. If you look at that fixture on the photometric plan,
Yeah, it's a full cutoff fixture.
yeah.
It's noted as a full cutoff
And
fixture.
I think I'm about 1 foot candle at the property line on the commercial side.
Yeah, no, you're actually a fraction of a foot candle, according to the drawing, but you're at 19.6, immediately adjacent to the building. Between the two buildings, it actually exceeds 21. That's extremely bright.
You're gonna be open at night?
Were you able to open it? I can't open mine.
Okay, here's
Here you go.
Yeah.
Photometric?
that's between the buildings, so it's not going to be much visibility
Yeah,
other than between the
LED
buildings.
fixtures, I don't know.
You know what's easy? Those fixtures come in about 3 different sizes.
Yeah,
Why don't I just step it down a size and have my engineer pull a photometric of that, and I'll pull a photometric of both of the other fixtures that are in that same category,
yeah.
and we'll bring it back to you.
Okay.
At the same
And my
time.
preference would be, I guess we're entering into the.
We're concerned about
security.
security to a certain
Yeah,
extent,
that's us.
and we don't want it to look like a nightclub, and,
Yeah,
You don't.
yeah.
But there's an alternative.
Yeah, so if the engineers can come, 21-foot candle is pretty,
That's
That's,
bright.
Pretty bright.
that's pretty bright.
There's 25
We may
actually.
sell it
If
hard at
on the
night.
property, that'd be,
Yeah.
wintertime.
You got 25 actually in there, and 33.4 over here.
really? Oh, I didn't miss that, I missed that.
Yep. Close to the buildings, in that between.
Between the two?
Oh, right up against the building, yeah, you're right.
We're blasting them from both sides.
Yeah, which is, and it's not just the intensity of light, but of course, the fact that we're going to gray is actually gonna help this, but I mean, a white building with 33-foot candles on it is gonna be visible from a long way
You can
away.
see it down 98 at 12 midnight.
So, anyway.
Yeah, but you got to consider, I don't disagree, but you got to consider how quickly it falls off from the source. That's why if you look at the property line, it's pretty
I'll
much,
give you a little interesting statistic that I remember from architecture school. The human eye is capable of detecting 1-foot candle a mile away.
a mile away.
Yes. So,
So 33?
yeah, dogs' noses are very sensitive, human eyeballs are very sensitive.
That's if you don't wear glasses.
Well,
Might hurt your eyes driving
I,
Publix.
I went to a gas
You can't
station
see
in
when the
Ponte
lights come.
Vedra. I think you can see that thing from space. Seriously.
And
I
one of
needed
them-
sunglasses to go in there. It was so bright and I was squinting.
Where?
Yeah, well,
Ponte Vedra, it's south of Jacksonville.
Exactly.
I do want to be respectful of the security concern, but I think there's a point at which you accomplish that, and anything beyond that's just.
Well taken.
All right, we got the continuance. We have a
To
motion
continue to the May 5th DRB meeting?
with those suggestions in mind, and we have a motion, we have a
Do
second.
we still need to allow the public?
Oh, does anybody from the public have anything to say? Or want to add anything? Nope, no? All right, no.
Who was the second?
I'll second.
Colleen, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign.
Okay, and then we have, do we just continue the next item as well, or do we, is that reasonable to?
We have to.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that was the deviation, the first item.
Correct.
The second item is the rest of it.
Colin.
Okay. In that case, do we, staff, do you have any comment about the second item? I'm sorry, you take over the meeting.
No,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, agree with me.
Oh, I didn't get a gavel, but they didn't give me one.
The project is contingent upon the deviations, so if you're going to continue the deviations, you're going to have to continue the project as well.
Chairman, so want to make a motion?
One thing that Mac pointed out, though, is you might identify the height of of the lighting.
It's on the elevations.
It's on the elevations, okay. 'Cause we were looking at the photometric plan, we couldn't find it.
Yeah, it's on the height, it's on the elevations of the architectural plan.
Okay.
I move that we continue, item number
It's
5
on
to the
number
May
5.
5th, 2016 DRB meeting.
Okay, we got a motion, we have a second?
Second. Lee.
Second, Lee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before we adjourn, can I make one comment request?
You guys something to talk about?
Just very short.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to request that we maybe hold a workshop, if the rest of the design review board agrees, on lighting.
Okay. We're going to have to ask for permission from the
Sure, yeah.
BCC, but we can do that.
Could I add to that we do lighting and signage?
Sure.
I think we got some signage issues.
Also, before you adjourn, I'd like to get some guidance on the palm trees.
Okay.
I've got a project coming up, so it's too late for them. They're too far down the path. But my concern was the code specifically says you have to have a canopy tree in the landscape islands. It has to be a canopy tree. The one we've got coming down the pike, they put palms in all of the landscape islands, and the code doesn't identify one. Is it a canopy tree? Is it an understory tree? It doesn't identify. It just says it's approved in the scenic corridor. It's an approved tree. So if you all could provide some guidance on whether you want to see an actual tree from the canopy list as opposed to a palm tree. They've got some palm trees in the buffers on the side too. They use them as their canopy tree on the side, the 85 feet on the side. My only concern is they don't give much in the way of shade. The whole idea of having a canopy tree, especially in the parking lot, is to provide some shade in the parking lot because you get these heat islands and whatnot. And a palm tree doesn't do much of that. I mean, it has some canopy, it provides some shade, but it's pretty limited.
Very limited.
And I mean, if unfortunately, I don't think that came to the fore as we were going through landscape. I mean, we just went through landscaping, but I'm not sure. I know we talked at length about palm trees. I'm not sure what changes we make, because honestly, I just haven't had the time to get in there and look at the proposed changes.
I think there was a little bit of conversation, I could be making this up, so bear with me, very early on about the fact that palms are not even really trees.
That's right.
And so to call them a canopy tree is even really a real stretch.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't have my book with me. So is there a set list of what qualifies as a canopy tree?
No. Now, there is a canopy tree list. It specifically says canopies. But then there's also a list of approved palms.
Okay.
And but it doesn't say this is a canopy. It's just palms, and they're allowed. It really doesn't give you much
Even though it just
direction.
says palms, they're considered a tree.
Go ahead, Tom.
You know,
What is the straight state tree of Florida?
I don't even know what the state tree of...
Sable palm.
Well, they're using cabbage palms in this particular instance. That's what they're using.
Are they pretty close?
oh, they're calling it a tree.
Sable palm about the same.
Yeah, they're close. I don't know if they're
Well,
exactly...
let me make this statement then. So the market shops.
Mhm. They got a deviation because they were using them in lieu of oaks in the scenic corridor buffer. They're not doing that. They're putting live oaks in the buffer. They're putting the palms on the side and in the landscape palms. But like I say, I bring it up because it specifically says a canopy tree. I guess if you literally interpret it, and I can do that with y'all's direction, that means you pull it from the canopy tree list. But I was just a little, since it doesn't identify one way or the other, what is a palm, but we do have a list specifically, it says canopy. These are our canopy trees, and it says a canopy tree has to be in the landscape palms.
In my opinion, if we have a list that says canopy trees, those are the only trees that we should count as canopy trees.
Okay,
Yeah, I was about to say,
that's the
if-
direction
if
I'm
Tim's
looking
trying to
for.
get
I give that
direction
direction.
in the form of an answer from us, and I'll offer the answer.
Does that make
You
sense,
guys
Mac?
shoot it down.
I agree.
I do not believe-
Just so you know, though, this
I agree.
project's too far down.
Okay.
It's went too far for us to come back now and say, hey, you got to change this because it's basically complete at this point. And I just didn't want to say, hey, you're going to have to change out these trees unless I got some more direction. And you know, we've been so busy. This is really my first opportunity to try to do that.
Going forward, palms are not canopy trees in this body's opinion.
Well, that's exactly the guidance I'm looking for.
No.
I agree.
So that means they can't put them in the side yard either.
So everybody
Basically,
okay
they
with
can
that?
do them in addition to.
That's
Right,
what
right.
I recalled our discussion is that we're very happy that people are putting more trees and palms, whether you consider them to be a tree or not. But I believe our discussion is that they were not to be used in lieu of, because most of the native palms are not sufficiently large enough to provide any sort of meaningful shade.
Meaningful
And the
shade.
date palms and sylvester palms and things like that are wonderful accents, but they shouldn't be used in lieu of oaks and magnolias and other native trees.
And we may have made exactly those changes. It's been so long since we had that conversation. You know, I knew we talked at length about palms.
I believe, I don't remember what it is, and since I didn't bring my book today, I can't tell you what it said, but I believe there is a sentence that we added, I think it was above the list of palms.
Yeah, I
A
think
single
you're
sentence we
right.
added, And I think that sentence had to do with how palms were to be used.
And they would be used in addition to whatever else.
Yeah.
But since the code specifically says you have to have canopy trees down the sides, then
If they're not in the list of canopy trees, they're not a canopy tree.
And while we're on this topic, if you guys take a look at the changes to the scenic, so we have Planning Commission coming up next week, BCC approval probably early May, if not late April. If you guys see anything that doesn't jive with what you remember, please don't discuss it among yourselves. Just email me, and I'll go back and check the minutes and make any changes if there's any slight. Lee was able to find something where I was supposed to put an asterisk by one of the palms, and I forgot to. So if you see anything like that, please feel free to let me know.
So take a quick,
I think I don't have to have a sign. I think I have a project that maybe they're talking
I think you do too. I think I'm looking at it.
about. Whatever my landscape architect.
they told you to do. All right, well, at least you got some direction on that, Tim.
Thank you.
We're good.
Gary, were you able to find that sentence?
I got your copy, and I thought maybe you had written something, but I only found one place where you underlined something.
Okay.
Yeah, we made.
I'll have to look at mine. But I remember that as
I
well.
remember there's a sentence or whatever we
So
put.
that's one of the final copies?
I don't know.
That's
No.
one I've given you all to mark up, and it's yours. I
Oh,
don't know.
okay.
But I don't think that's one of
All
the.
right, we got anything else we need to discuss? Before we.
Oh, just so you know, there's going to be another attorney here for May's meeting. Mark and I are both going to be at a CLE. So, not sure who it'll be, but. And then also for Mr. Waldrop and David, we need to get the recusal
Mine is
forms.
up there.
Okay.
He already turned his in.
Good.
I'm gonna make a copy because I only have one left.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, this is prior.
Yeah.
Planning, that's one of the things that you do, right?
Yes.
All right,
Hey, do you know where it is? Can you tell me what section?
It's all the way.
Where this extra sentence is?
Are you, yeah, if you want to just.
Okay, that's cool.
I'll let you. I don't know that one. I don't know what page.
I think it's by the list of plants.
hey, that's a better looking blue than it's on that McDonald building.
Oh my God. That thing is,
My God.
I am just like, every time I drive by, O'Donnell.
Somebody said, oh, I had quite a few people say it before me. Said,
Me too.
you guys approved that?
Who did approve it? I wasn't either. Tom came on the same time I did. That thing.
That's why I like the dark.
David, I think it's at the very end with the list of plants.
As muted as it can get, because that thing is, it's not, and there are issues with it too now, you know. I mean, all of their they have like 8 or 9 HVAC units that are completely visible on the
Your
roof.
HVAC.
They're working with them to fix that now. Their monument sign is completely out of compliance. The O'Donnell Eye building, the blue and white, next to Donut Hole in Santa Rosa Beach, the brand new building. You gotta check it out. I mean, it might be a cool looking building, but not here.
That's almost like doing ICF.
No, there was one that I've got to fix. There's one that needs an asterisk.
You got so much insulation, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so, here's what the
What
note
you got?
said. The note was a sentence added at the very top of the plant list. So it applies to all the plants, and it says, plants noted with an asterisk are non-native and shall be used only as accent plantings and shall be subordinate in number and massing to native plantings. And most of the large palms have an asterisk. So I think not only could they're not indicated as, they're in a completely separate list, separate and apart from canopy trees. They also are indicated they have to be subordinate to native plantings.
So they're accents only.
Yeah, other than the, let's see, the cabbage palm, salt palmetto, which obviously is not a tree size.
Uh-oh.
Needle palm is really small,
Hey,
windmill palm.
those are bigger palms.
That has an asterisk. The jewels are very large.
Yeah, more
palms,
expensive.
but,
That one might have been the one that needed an asterisk, but didn't.
Or was it Sylvester?
I
I think both of them.
Sylvester, we had one.
There's two, yeah.
Where it happened
Palms
is,
are funny. When Sydney asked the question, I went back to the same list that I had originally looked at to try to identify which were native and non-native, and I can't remember the term used, but essentially it said that no palms were truly native to Florida. All of them migrated here essentially. There were 12 types of palms that are considered by horticulturists okay to plant and you're not bringing in an invasive exotic or something like that. Those are the ones that do not have asterisks. Most of those 12 don't do well in areas that freeze. So I think there's only 3 or 4, cabbage palms being one of them, and saw palms being another, I believe, that survive freezes.
So,
don't.
how do you handle it if it doesn't have an asterisk?
Then it's, then it doesn't have to be an accent. But I think what we covered your situation with the fact that
It has to
there's
be
a
from the
list.
canopy list, yeah. Because he's using a cabbage palm, so, but it would still have to be in addition to.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be, I guess the logic would be is that if you can include palms in the canopy list, even though they're separate, well, then you could use the same argument for shrubs, which clearly are not
Right.
canopy trees.
Right. Well, and I thought that. I just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. Unfortunately, this project's too far down the road to make a change at this point, but at least we're all on the same page now. Well, there's really two. One is Tom Thumb, which is going to be a huge improvement because they're bringing it up to code where it's not even close to being up to.
On 38?
No, on 98 down between
By Grand Boulevard.
down before you get to Silver Sands on the left, that one.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a huge improvement to what's there now. The other one is Dr. Patton's building. It's going to come before this board next month. I've already scheduled it for next month. So we can't really at this point make him switch out, but it's those two projects.
Okay.
He's putting, it's the same landscape architect. Apparently he's got getting a good buy on cabbage palms or something. But he's putting them on the side as his canopy trees for Tom Thumb, which again, like I say, there's nothing there now, so it's going to be a huge difference. Yeah.
Why
Huge
is it too
improvement.
far down the road? Did it get approved by staff?
Yeah, we've already told him we're gonna advertise it for the. I've already scheduled it for next month's meeting, so we could do it, but
Meeting?
they'd have a conniption if we
This
came back and
meeting?
said, hey, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
switch out all your.
Sorry, I don't want to cut off the discussion because I think we're having a good discussion, but we don't want to get too much into projects that are going to come before the board.
All right,
But
with
it's
that
scheduled to
being,
come before us next month?
Next month.
The one you're talking about?
Yes,
Well, we can-
all right.
that's why I'm saying it's too late now to make them.
All right, well, we got our orders, we got our directions, and we've got.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes, sir, motion. Do we have a
Second.
second? Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Bye.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh.